Hello and welcome to Socially Distant Discover Nature. It's a bit cold outside and rainy and slightly dark and miserable, so this week we're going to try and introduce some colourfulness, if that's even a word, into our lives, looking at plants that flower in autumn that are good for pollinators. This video completes our trio of episodes all about plants and flowers. However, in the previous two videos, sort of meadow maintenance, meadow creation, we talked about things that you can do right now. Little caveat on today's episode, unless you're willing to go out and spend big money on ready grown plants to pop in your garden or community area, local park, whatever, then what we're talking about now is probably stuff you should be thinking about with a view to making it happen next autumn. This is really giving you a heads up of things that you could be growing from small plants throughout next year, so by the time we reach autumn again, they're big, showy, flowery plants are attracting lots of pollinators. I'd like to point out I'm filming this video at 1 PM on Sunday afternoon. All morning it's been miserable and grey and dark, and the moment I try to get the camera out, it's absolute blinding sunshine, so I'm squinting into the camera. But I guess for everyone else in the York area, you're welcome. So without further ado, let's talk about some interesting species of plants that you can get in your garden this time of year that are good for pollinators. We'll start off with a really striking purple one, which is verbena. Often can grow quite tall, and I've noticed recently it's really attractive to butterflies. I've had a lot of white butterflies coming, landing on it, feeding. It's really, really, really good. It's a lot of reallys there. It earned them. Next, for a really dazzling display of colour in autumn, I'd go for Rudbeckia, which are these tall plants. They've got kind of star-shaped flowers, dark brownish centres, yellow petals, extremely vibrant. And in my garden and beyond, I've noticed them being visited by both hoverfly species and also bees as well. It's a nice open flower, easily accessible to the insects to get the nectar within. Speaking of star-shaped flowers, there are a huge variety of asters. So these look like daisies, large daisies, cultivated daisies, daisies from elsewhere in the world. Vibrant colours, so they will cheer you up, lift your mood, but again, they are beloved by various insects. So I've seen hoverflies visiting them, loads of different types of hoverfly. Another burst of colour, this time often in whites, pinks and in-betweens, is anemones. These are really good at growing in shady conditions, so I have them here in the garden because there is a lot of shade there, and I've seen them frequented by bumblebees. Most recently, lovely little ginger-coloured common carder bumblebee. I would class all the ones I've talked about so far as cultivated, so they've either been artificially selected or bred, or they've been brought in from elsewhere. They're kind of non-native, but they're still good for pollinators, they've still got the nectar. And the final one in this category I want to talk about are sedums. Sedums come in all shapes and sizes. They can also be known as stonecrop. Amazing autumn I associate with the sedum. It's that burst of pink colour, and again it's the bumblebees that are coming to visit it, and also randomly I keep seeing shield bugs on it as well, common green shield bug, which is interesting. I think the one out there is the cultivar, the variety Autumn Joy, and it's well named, for it brings us joy in autumn. So those are all the sort of cultivated, imported, what I'm going to call garden-y flowers. But there are other things that you can do to both provide interest, colour, and most importantly, food for pollinators at this time of year. If you're growing native wildflower species or you've got them in the meadow, then yarrow is a great one. Achillea millefolium, I think it is. Often sort of white colour. Functions as a large, flat platform of flowers that insects can just land, sip nectar, walk, sip, bauxite, and so on. Highly recommend that one. But perhaps the most important one I'm going to talk to you today, in fact I'll take my sunglasses off for it because it's so important, is ivy. Ivy is an incredible resource for animals, insects, all sorts of stuff out there. Ivy can provide home to a massive quantity of invertebrates, which in turn feed things higher up the food chain, such as birds, spiders, wasps, etc. And when I used to think about ivy, I just thought it was scenery, coating fences, walls, trees, etc. Never considered it actually had flowers, and it does have flowers, and autumn into winter is the time when they're out. They look like little sort of, I don't know, flowers modelled by a computer program, a frozen miniature explosion. They're very weird, but they are an incredible source of nectar for insects at this time of year. Bees absolutely love them, and sometimes you can hear the ivy bushes abuzz with bees, which is very good. People can get a bit shirty and a bit scared about ivy. They worry about it growing up the houses, damaging the stonework. I can't really comment on that, don't know a great deal, but I do know a bit more about the stuff on trees. People get worried it's damaging the trees. It's not damaging the trees per se. So a strong tree, have ivy on it, the ivy is just using that tree for support. So don't take it off. I've read in an invertebrate handbook that removing ivy from trees is essentially a crime against nature. So don't do that. Your problems arise if you've got a really old, creaky, potentially decaying tree that's got ivy on, weighing it down, or providing a large surface area that in a windy storm could cause the tree to fall. So really, you have to know your tree. Keep doing the safety checks. If it looks like it's damaged, decaying, get tree surgeons in to deal with it. But otherwise, if your tree is fine and healthy and it's got ivy on, leave it, because that is an incredible habitat. So there you have it. There's some cultivated garden-y plants for you and a couple of native. The most important take-home message is ivy is great. There we go. So as we move into the month of October, there's the potential for the Discover Nature group in some form to go back to St. Nick's, which means there might be a change in the format of these videos. So we can discuss that more in next week's episode, but potentially we're moving to a more find of the week discussion. So if you do have anything that you yourselves are out finding on your local nature reserves, wherever you are in the world, absolutely send us some photos. We'd love to hear from you. So until next week, with exciting new things afoot, goodbye.